Hello, I want to talk to you today about present economic situation and the catastrophe that is soon to follow. I'm going to put it into some historical context, outline the reasons why and how we know exactly what to expect and the reasons for that. First, I'll start off and try to remember this. In 1932, after the crash, 5,000 banks failed and closed their doors completely. This is an intrinsically important point for you to remember as I can continue to outline this. You'll refer back to that to put together how we can be certain as to what's going to happen and why. At that point, when those banks failed, the unprecedented measures implemented by Roosevelt in 32 were by all accounts, far more disastrous for the economy than was the crash itself. Whether well intended or not, it is not at all the point, as we must give Roosevelt and his strategy the benefit of the doubt, considering at the time we had no prior experience to provide standard from which to model the recovery after. So, given that unique set of unprecedented circumstances with no way to be sure what remedy will be successful, we have to assume that they did what they thought truly believed was the correct response, and unfortunately were very wrong indeed. I'm trying to explain some very basic historical facts and events in an effort to provide some context for our present and emerging crisis. When you can fully appreciate the historical relevance within context, it reveals to us very clearly and precisely what to expect and ultimately what will happen to our present crisis as if you were gazing into a crystal ball. This, of course, is the primary importance of the study of history, and armed with a healthy understanding of the specific context you intend to focus. The ability to predict the future events becomes little more than deductive reasoning, historical analysis, and applied economics in capitalist form market system, and you will quickly conclude some very disturbing facts about the reality of our present situation. If we were to rely upon this very limited historical information alone, we can already conclude two very big problems with almost no effort at all. As I explained before, in 32, Roosevelt did what he thought was correct for the response to the crash and utterly failed and quite literally ended up creating an even worse situation as a result. It would be hard to believe that the economic super geeks on the Obama economic team, a virtual carbon copy of the Clinton elitists recycled into this administration, who by all accounts are not at all fiscal conservatives but mostly self-professing liberal academic elitists, many of which are in point of fact economics professors themselves, like Romer, herself an expert in Great Depression economics, no less heads the Council on Economic Affairs, whose job is specifically and solely to advise the President on economic strategy. So I repeat, it is hard to believe that they did not understand the historical context of the Depression era tactics extremely well, and especially Romer, who I believe wrote a book on that very thing. So why exactly has the brilliantly selected economic team decided to create and advise the president to do what has now been his first response to the crisis? I am not at all kidding with you, and if I had not read the stimulus bill myself, I could not even believe it possible, but I swear to you, these people have done exactly and precisely, like almost to the fucking letter, exactly what they fucking know, every one of them knows, doesn't work all at all, and worse, has the potential to supersize this bitch. These people are not at all going to convince me ever that they made a mistake or spin it out into something else. I know that they know what exactly that they are doing, and I have to conclude that they are doing it on purpose. The second thing we can gather from this limited information alongside present circumstances is that there is an even greater threat that awaits our economy, worse than the current symptoms of a weakening economy sinking under the heavy weight of soaring debt, crippled by the total absence of available credit, all of which are extremely dire conditions, but nonetheless fixable. There, where this situation takes a radical turn from extremely dire economic circumstances that needs to be fixed to an altogether different idea, economic catastrophe, is absolutely certain without the possibility to be fixed. So the situation has taken a considerable turn for meltdown. So how can we be so sure, and why? The short answer is that every economic structure can only function in principle at all if it followed the philosophical foundations that the theoretical model has provided. And when that model is willfully abandoned for an alternative, the very structure of the economy itself has been undermined. In other words, needing to fix a bad broken economy is one thing, and not having a functional theoretical model that is in place to contain this mess is altogether a different story. It essentially, at this point, cannot be fixed because the model is now broke. The structural theory we base the economy on has been abandoned. When Bush decided to bail out the banks, remember the 5,000 that crashed in 32, this should be a key lesson, and I refer you back. When he bailed them out, this began in October. The model and the economic structure broke, and from then on has not at all worked since. Everything from then on and to today has been an effort to preserve the illusion of prosperity and to delay the inevitable complete collapse that is now not if, but when proposition. The economy stopped functioning officially in October and has not moved since. It's desperate efforts all designed to clearly delay. It cannot be fixed, and you need to prepare for this. One very obvious clue should be to understand that capitalist free market system cannot bail out its banks. This is completely antithetical to capitalism, and now that we did this, we no longer operate a capitalist theoretical model, and what do we do then? The slippery slope has fundamentally and theoretically changed the nature of our system that is now completely broke and non-operational unless and until we decide exactly what model we will implement and then stick to it. They are forced to print vast amounts of paper money now as there is no other alternative, or the government will not be able to function with the enormous interest on the debt ever soaring. They can do little else except print more paper money, and of course this is not substantiated with any intrinsic value. So every dollar that they print is decreasing the value of the currency, and as a broken economy cannot generate equity on debt, your dollars become increasingly worthless. Do you see the nature of the unfolding drama and why it is so predictable? That answer should be quite obviously yes. So what I've outlined to you is the reason why it's completely predictable situation based on the set of facts as we know them. This has nothing whatsoever to do with a particular rescue plan that could or could not be successful. And we also happen to know that that rescue plan is exactly and precisely what Roosevelt did himself in 32 and failed at it miserably. And I repeat the fact that his economic team are not idiots, and they clearly know this stuff and have elected to do it anyway, and it leads us to conclude that they must obviously want this to happen. I don't know what else to say except that you need to prepare for the worst. Under the present situation, as we know it and as it's emerging, you don't feel or understand the magnitude of the situation in any real sense, because these efforts that they are continuing to implement are designed to delay the impact of the catastrophe that will ultimately unfold in a way that it will come in waves that will be softer, but nonetheless equally as catastrophic in the final analysis. There is no possibility for this situation to fix itself or to get better. And the sooner you realize that, and the better you internalize it, the better off you'll be in order to prepare for, the worst situation, stock up on food, be prepared for high levels of crime, rioting in the streets, and ultimately I predict and even suggest very boldly that we have a revolution in this country in order to take care of this problem in the final day. And I predict that that revolution will erupt in a very clear and present way by the end of 2010 or in the middle of 2011. We have the rest of 2009 and most of 2010 before it is a well-known uncertain fact, and every single person will be unmistakably aware and clear of this terrible situation. So hopefully that's made it a little clearer for you. Thank you.